Oh, yeah.
So now I have to read on
He's giving us the countdown. Good evening, everyone. It's April 18th, 2018, and this is the Advisory Committee. I'm the chair of the Advisory Committee, Steve McDonough. And why don't we go around and do introductions? Susan?
Sue Jacobson?
Jonathan Hurwitz.
Arthur Franzak.
Pat Sneed.
We do the votes, but we can actually start and listen to all our nice guests and hear what people have to say, and hopefully then Peg will be here shortly.
So, Steve, can I just bring something to the
Absolutely.
attention of the board members that are here? I need to let everybody know that I made an error and arrived on Tuesday morning and went to revise the agenda for tonight's meeting thinking it was Monday, because we had a Monday holiday. So I posted some specific times for people to come, and then realizing it was Tuesday, about 5 minutes later, I had to go back in and change the posting to read warrant discussion, article voting. So I could not, although people can certainly, as you can tell from the audience, they're allowed to come in and discuss anything that's on the warrant. I just wanted everyone to know that if they saw those changes on My Town Government, that's what happened, and it was simply that arriving on Tuesday morning thinking it was Monday, I didn't have the allotted time to make the change and put specific people in specific times. But after checking with some people that have more knowledge in the town hall than I do, they said that we could continue to discuss the warrant articles and vote warrant articles.
All right, the quorum is here.
Quorum plus.
Hi.
Good evening. That's all right.
So somebody can leave now, I think.
I can leave?
Keep going.
No, if you get here last, you don't get to leave. That's not the way it works. So.
Welcome, good to see you.
Thank you, yes, good to see you. The commute was a little bit longer today than usual. Sorry I'm late.
That's quite all right, thank you.
Ours was mine.
But not as long as his.
And we have Arlie Sterling and Peg Driscoll. So we're going to start in on Article 11, which is a petitioner's article. And we'll hear from our town administrator, Jack Hathaway.
Just
Thank you.
Could you pass around?
you don't mind, I'll
Thank you.
take the microphone up here.
That's good. That's quite all right.
So you can see there are quite a few town hall employees interested in this article, and I'll go through a little bit of history and then some rationale as to why we operate the way we do, why I think the model we have today is a good model and effective for both employees and for the residents. You know, certainly there's always different opinions, and you know, if we could open for 80 hours a week, that would make everybody happy. But obviously,
Except the budget.
except for the budget, right? Thank you, Arthur. So quickly, just kind of a history, and I have. I think most of you have those, but if anybody wants that. Prior to 2000, we were in a traditional quote unquote 5-day work week, 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. Around 2001, when Bob Markle was town administrator, we transitioned to a varied schedule, which was Monday to Wednesday, 8 to 4. Did those get passed around? Did they give those to you? Okay. Peg, did you get Peg?
I have two.
All right, as long as you got one.
I'm good.
So,
I'm good.
we switched to Monday to Wednesday, 8 to 4. Thursday, 8 to 7, hoping to help some residents who were coming back from Boston, was probably the rationale there. And then to fill that gap of the 40 hours, the town was open 8 to 1 on Friday. And we'll get to some of the pros and cons of the different schedules if you want to get into that later. But for various reasons, that wasn't working perfectly, so we switched to a 4-day schedule. And we originally went to an 8 to 5 Monday and Wednesday, and 8 to 7 on Tuesday and Thursday. The short answer on that was that created a lot of confusing. It created administrative challenges trying to track people's times. You know, if either you're off on an 11-hour day or a 9-hour day, it made a difference. So we had to start tracking things by hours. Whether a sick day for 11 hours was the same as a sick day for 9 hours. It was a little bit of an administrative challenge. But more importantly, it created a problem for residents. Lots of times, and I know Marion and I have had this conversation many times. Residents would come in at 5:30 on Monday and be frustrated that they said, "Oh, you're not open tonight," and then they'd have to come back on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it just not having a consistent schedule created some level of challenges. So eventually in 2007, we transitioned to where we are today, 8 to 6, Monday through Thursday. All the employees are working 40 hours. Obviously, that's 4 10-hour days. They get a paid half-hour lunch in most cases. I think all cases by today. For in a little while, we had some unions that had some differences, but at this point, we're 4 half-hour lunches. So there's actually we don't have to pay for a 5th lunch like we used to. So that's kind of the history of what we went through. The second page I gave you just kind of shows you the town hall staff and shows you that many of the departments we have, some have 1 employee, some have 2, and there's a couple that have 3. And what is important here is that we don't have a lot of flexibility when somebody takes a vacation, or we don't have really the opportunity to offer. If we also wanted to keep the benefit of being open until 6 at night or sometime in the evening where residents could come in after their work schedule. If we also wanted to open up on Fridays, it would make it difficult for us because we only have, a lot of departments, we only have 1 employee. So we don't have that flexibility of having some people working late some evenings and another person working on Friday. I put the people that are dealing with the public in green, just so you can see those. And again, it kind of highlights that in more than one, probably half a dozen departments, we're only at 1, and in some cases 2 employees that deal with the public. On the third page, I give you kind of the pros and cons of each of the schedules, this was talking to some of the town hall employees, many of whom went through these different iterations, the pros and cons, and really, Schedule D is where we are today, and it offers the Monday through Thursday, 8 to 6. I think it really, the things for me that are important are it does give the people who, the residents who work the ability to either come in prior to them going to work, or coming in after, hopefully they can get out at 5, or if they have to leave a little early, they can get home, still get here by 6 o'clock. It offers some flexibility there. I realize it doesn't give them the ability to come in on Friday, and truth be told, we didn't used to get a lot of business on Fridays. I will tell you the building community will come in the contractors will come in Monday. They'll come in every day, but residents back in the days we were open on Fridays, we didn't get a lot of business on Fridays. So I would rather, I guess, if you had to ask me what my recommendation is to stay where we are today, because I think having town hall open until 6 o'clock 4 days a week, it's a consistent schedule. It offers people the flexibility of either coming in, in the morning, or allowing them to come in until 6 o'clock, 5:55 at night, and catching us. I will tell you, I can go through every single department here and tell you there are cases where if people couldn't come in anytime 8 through 6, if they've called us, we've made arrangements to make sure that, somebody either meets them on a Saturday or stays, they'll stay after hours, and, we'll do things by appointment as well. So it's not like we aren't flexible for people either. And just the one other point is, we do a lot more business online today. You can pay your bills online. You can sign up for all the rec programs online. You can sign up for, we have some building permit and accessibility now, and in the next month or so we'll be installing the new program, having that go live, so we'll even have more flexibility for people to get all of their permits online. So there'll be, the good news is there'll be less reason to have to come to town hall. One other thing I would say, and you'll hear it, I'm sure, from the employees too, is just that It's a benefit for us for recruiting and retaining employees, to offering the 4-day schedule. Many of the employees have either they're taking care of children or grandchildren on Fridays, or they have second employment on Fridays. So it offers them, some flexibility in there, a benefit to them that it would not be available if we were working on Fridays as well. So that's I'm happy to answer any questions. I know there's probably some other people that want to speak as well, but just wanted to give you that little bit of history.
Thank you. Questions, Pat?
I know it's a petitioner article. I don't know if the petitioner is here or not, but clearly it seems that the town staff does not particularly want to go back to the different schedule. And I'm just wondering what the reasons are for changing from where we are.
I haven't heard directly from the petitioner as to why. It's, I'll be honest with you, somebody that sometimes likes to just try and tell me how to run my business. So he may be doing it just for that reason. I don't know. I'm guessing. I certainly get the idea that, gee, it'd be great to have be open Friday as well, but I don't see the ability, I don't see where, we'd have to take something away, or dramatically increase the budget. We'd have to take hours away in the evening if we were going to open back up on Friday, and it hasn't been communicated to me as to what his reasons are, so maybe I shouldn't speculate for him. But I think you will hear from many employees who think the Monday through Thursday is very good.
Do you see significant business from 4 to 6? Is that helpful to people? Compared to like a Friday?
No, I don't think there's a dramatic amount of business. I think the flexibility for the few that take advantage of that. Yeah, I think we do see business, but I don't think there's lots of times at 5:30 it's kind of, you can hear the crickets out in the hallway. So there's not.
Okay.
It depends if it's unless it's tax payment time.
Seasonal, okay.
Then it's very busy.
Can I quickly ask, is there anyone here at all here to speak in support of the petition?
So the petitioner was invited to attend the meeting?
Well, I'm just saying, of the people in the crowd, does anyone have any argument at all in favor of this?
No, we're all
No?
opposed.
Can I make a move to vote on this then? I mean, do we need more discussion?
Well, before we vote, we have a lot of people out here, so if somebody would like to speak before we vote, you're certainly welcome to kick Jack out of his chair and share some additional comments with us, but sure. Proto,
And Proto, Recreation.
even though we have the microphone.
So I just thought I would add this. So recreation hours are different than any other department because people recreate when they're off, and so that's evenings and Fridays. So a lot of times we are here on Fridays, and there is no one ringing the bell. There's no one coming to the town hall on Friday. Maybe an occasional person, but I asked Kathy about this, who's here in the morning, and then a lot of times I'm here on the afternoon, and I really can't remember the last time the bell rang on Friday for someone looking for someone. And she said the same thing. Maybe years ago when we made the switch and people had to get used to it, but I just thought I would bring that up because I think someone mentioned that. So it's not like we're turning people away on Fridays.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Wherever you're more comfortable.
Chairs are more comfortable up here.
Good evening, Richard McCarthy, the newer planner here. I've been here 5 months, and I can speak from, at least from the standpoint of somebody who is coming new to working here. And of course, I concur with the idea of keeping the things the way they are. The advantage to me as a professional, but in my own personal world, I find this schedule, which was one of the things that attracted myself to come here with discussions with my wife, was that, as a planner, you're at a Board of Selectmen meeting, you're at a ZBA meeting, you're at a planning board meeting, could be a conservation meeting, this particular meeting, and so forth, during the week. And it allows me to actually gain back some personal time with my family that I didn't have during the week with doing this type of job. So there is, which I think in the long run is a helpful thing, because it does provide a healthy environment for people to work. So there is, I will say that was one of the things where I've worked previously in other towns. They didn't have that, the system, which again was, you get to the point when you're at a planning board meeting later in the week, and then you got to come in the next day, and it can be a grind over time. So I do find the advantage. And lastly, I will say that being here with a cell phone and email, I'm pretty confident residents have already heard from me on Saturday, Sunday, Mondays, holidays already. So we are, although maybe not physically available to people, we usually are pretty prompt to get back to them in some shape or form. So it's not as if, and like Jack mentioned, I've always had in the past, and I would here as well, make time set aside for an individual if they couldn't meet during those hours. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be brief. I'm Scott Bragdon. I'm the Human Resource Director. I can tell you it's clear that the employees, as you see by the people here, feel strongly that this is the right schedule. It's been said, and I can tell you, recruiting the right talent for a town like this is a challenge, because we're a small town. So if you're looking for people like Rich, who are very experienced, you need some tools to do that. And I can tell you consistently, we've built a terrific senior team here, and one of the major reasons we've been able to do that is quality of life, including this particular thing, so that you can get someone who is very experienced, maybe comes from a larger town, that says, hey, I can come here and have good work, add a lot of value, and have a life. I'm not out 7 nights a week, so it's an important tool. We have, I don't think anybody mentioned, we have a box outside that gets used all of the time for people to put their taxes in, so people can leave that. I can tell you that I deal with union issues. I deal with the business agents on Fridays, and the other town departments that are working. People can reach me anytime, and I think it's I think it would be important for you guys to support the employees and do this. That's really it.
Thank you.
Karen Terry, Building Department. I'd also like to add that I, as a grandparent, do care for my grandchildren on Fridays, but I also make doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, all of that on Friday, so I don't have to take time out of the office to meet those obligations with doctors and whatever. I honestly, I think everybody pretty much does that, so the town hall is staffed when they need to be staffed, and people aren't taking off during the week. And again, I have met people here at town hall on Fridays and Saturdays. If something needed to be done, they can reach me. I mean, developers in town have my cell phone. They can call me at home. They have my emails, anything. So I think we all make those accommodations when we need to.
All right. Oh, one more? Two? Sorry.
Just a couple of points. I think everybody, Betsy Fidgel, I'm 20-year employee here for the town, municipal union president, representing my town hall employees. I actually wasn't supposed to be here tonight because I was covering a zoning board meeting, but that got postponed, so I had prepared a letter to send to you, so I'm not going to send it. But everybody brought up some really good points tonight, which I was going to say, so I'm not going to repeat them. I did have a conversation today with a gentleman that is actually running for the Board of Selectmen, had asked my input on how we felt about that petition article, and I told him that we were all strongly opposed to it. And he has been, I guess, talking to some of the residents of town, trying to get their input. And I guess one of the issues people had were the accessibility of the town hall to file complaints on Fridays. Well, as we all know, we're all available by email, voicemail. All of us have cell phones. Myself included, have been contacted on the weekends by the police department. Yep. So if there's a true emergency, they can call the dispatcher. Pretty much all of us are available. Jack has my cell phone. We've communicated on weekends, certain issues. So we can't use that as an excuse to be open on Fridays. On a personal note, I do many evening meetings, as do a lot of us. And, if the town hall were open till 4 and I'd have to come back at 7, that doesn't work. I need that time, after the town hall closes, before the meeting, to prepare for a meeting. So that's a lot of time, that's a lot of comp time being accumulated. So, and I know that they try to limit that, so it's not financially suitable for the town. So that really is pretty much, I think we've covered everything, and I guess you guys know where we all stand. So, thank you.
I'm on that side of the room too. for this.
Yes.
Supporting my coworkers in this chair.
Actually, one question, Jack, for you. I think you've said this, but just to confirm, were this to pass, we're still open 40 hours. It's just a different distribution of those 40 hours.
Correct.
So it's still 40 hours. There's no financial impact. Well, utilities aside, right? The things like that. There's no budget impact from salaries or anything like that. It's not that we're increasing hours. We're keeping hours level. Just it'll be less hours 5 days a week as opposed to more hours 4 days a week. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to the transition that we made historically when we went to the 4-day week. We did not, it was not a cost increase. In fact, there was a benefit because we still don't heat and the building is less temperate on Fridays. We turn down the heat, we turn down the air conditioning. We don't turn it all the way off because, recreation is here, facilities is here. So we don't try and freeze them out. But they're tough. So the estimate back 10 years ago was about a $10,000 savings. It's hard to know if that's the exact number, but there is a savings for turning that down. A lot of town halls are open 36 hours. As they went through different cost-saving measures, mostly about 10 years ago when we had the really tough financial times. If you look at Rentham's, Rentham is open, they have a half-day on Friday, but if you look at the individual departments, many of them are only open 6 to 20 hours a week. I know the land use boards, for example, are only open 2 or 3 days a week for around the lunchtime hours. So we're fortunate that we've had the budget to support having all the town hall offices open for 40 hours.
Any other questions from the board or discussion? No. Harley?
There was a comment that the petitioner was invited to speak.
So the petitioner was invited to come this evening, he couldn't come. I extended an invitation to the petitioner to come on April 25th. And he said he may be able to come later in the evening. I offered him any real schedule that evening because you try to accommodate everybody. He said he would let me know, but I believe his words in the email were that these petition articles are fairly self-explanatory. So he has not gotten back to me that he will or will not be here on the 25th, so I don't want to indicate either way, but he did say that they're self-explanatory articles, and I have the email where he said that, so.
I was on those, that's
Yeah, I
accurate.
shared that with Steve. Steve was on the email list.
I'm not sure who this question's for, but to our knowledge, have there been complaints about the hours of the town hall? Has this issue been
I
brought
think
up?
other than what Betsy said was, there was a complaint made to the individual running for selectman that, I think it was particularly around, projects in town, and so if there's, for example, there have been some complaints, since the project next door started happening, and so I think that there's no one here if they feel that a developer is doing something maybe they think he shouldn't be doing on that particular day. But I think what Betsy said is you can contact the police who have, Jack on speed dial. And many of the rest of us, our cell phone numbers are all on an emergency contact list, so, but I think that it was kind of a very general, but again, I don't know why the petitioner chose to put in this petition.
Yeah, I think, just to back that up, I think that between myself, the building commissioner, Betsy, Rich, other members of the building department, we're all, electrical inspector in particular gets called a lot. We get calls. The building department probably much more than I do, but we get calls, and they deal with any questions about construction sites. It's not that big of a deal to.
As it's a safety issue around town, the DPW does work on Fridays. So they are here, they're filling potholes, they're responding to trees down or whatever emergencies there are.
Mr. Moderator, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 11.
Second.
It's just a question. I mean, I'm inclined to support an indefinite postponement just on the merits, but I also hate voting without having even heard anyone express interest as to why they're even submitting this.
We can reopen if he appears, and if he doesn't appear, then
He's one person I'd hate, whoever this individual is. It's like, well, we voted against you, so you can come and talk to us if you want. Maybe we'll reopen it. I just wanted at least to listen. Again, I have a 4-day work week myself that I work, and I'm very supportive of it. But I just want to at least hear somebody articulate a reason for it.
I'm just not hearing a commitment
Yeah, right. The
for...
petitioner said it's
for
self-explanatory.
Petitioner, right?
Well, that's the thing, so the
is.
petitioner didn't even respond to, well,
Hold on, I'm gonna pull up the
several
emails.
emails to even say, absolutely fine, if the person couldn't be here tonight, okay, so what about this, the next week? But there was no interest or even courtesy of a response initially about coming. So I would actually be against postponing it, just to give that person another opportunity to be here,
Because of the lack of responsiveness.
right, and they've had opportunities to respond. So,
Okay.
or say I can't be here this day, but I can be this day, and it's,
They don't seem overly motivated.
Well, I think saying that the article is self-explanatory really says it all.
We
Okay.
can always, we always have the right to reconsider as well.
That's
so-
very true. Yeah, that's very true. We can reopen it at any time. But also, when we publish our opinion in the warrant, I mean, we want to, we can't just wait till the day of. Okay.
just before you take any more steps, I would just like to add that I think the schedule's great. And for someone that, when you're working a lot, even though my office is now closed, but when it wasn't as close, to be able to leave the office late in the day, if you had to, I'm famous for misplacing my excise tax bills. So, hello. Yeah, so every year I'm like, I really should save those, but I don't. So it's great, I think, to be able to come up to the end of the day and get here. And I'm sure that other people feel the same way. I've actually talked to a couple of people about this in my neighborhood, and it seems to be trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist. And I've also worked a non-traditional schedule, and I can appreciate all the comments about having that day to get some stuff done that we all have to worry about, because you are here
Yeah.
late at night with all the meetings. And I think people, myself included, until I was on the board, really underestimated the amount of time that a lot of the employees put in at these meetings. So,
Do we have a second for the motion?
Yes,
Thanks.
I second it.
all in favor to
So
definitely,
just as an observation, I don't feel any rush to take this vote. I share everyone's opinion, but I feel that the petitioner should be given every opportunity to appear. mean, we often don't vote on these things until
Mhm.
till the very end. I'm not sure why we feel a need to act tonight.
But we
frankly, on
did,
this.
it's not just tonight, I don't think, Harley, we did talk about, even the end of last season, about when we go to review an article. Because before, we would sometimes vote a lot of stuff at the end, which could seem a little rushed, so we have sort of tried to morph a little bit to voting.
Yeah.
You know, we have a presentation, if we have enough information to vote on it, but if, we certainly could table it to next week.
If we had any evidence of the petitioner's interest in appearing and making whatever statement he or she wishes to make, I would agree with you, but we have no such evidence before us.
And the petitioner could have presented us with a written letter or document
Or
explaining his reasoning.
So on March 21st, I wrote to the petitioner, I said the advisory committee would like to invite you to present your petitioner articles. The chairman has scheduled you to come in on April 18th. Please let me know if this date is not convenient for you, and I will do my best to reschedule. So on 3/21, I got back, I will let you know. And then I wrote again, and let's see, because I did not hear back. I wrote again, I believe, the following week, asking about tonight. He did get back to me and say he couldn't come in tonight. He has not committed yet as to the 25th. He's going to let me know. You know, the drop dead date for him letting me know is Tuesday because, actually, no, it's Monday because I've got to
Post it.
put him on the agenda. He could certainly come in like these people have and ask to speak to us. But, and I, like I said, I did copy Steve on the emails.
Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, if the guy worked for me and acted like this, it wouldn't work for me for very long. But I mean, but it's not. That's not. We're not really in that style. But I don't want to inappropriately delay. But I'm not sure why there's a rush.
Next meeting is our last one, or there's
It
one?
is. And we have, right now, we have Chief Bushnell, Bob McGee, and Jack, and Todd Lindmark, the finance director, coming
And the
in.
agenda for that meeting closed yesterday.
Oh, no, the agenda for that meeting is open until Monday.
Until
And
Monday.
again, the petitioner could certainly come in, like these people have, because all of my agendas say warrant discussion and voting articles. But I can't put a specific time for him.
I understand.
So,
I'm with Arlie in terms of not wanting to rush it. I just don't want to create a scenario when, you know, day of town meeting, well, I tried to talk to the advisory board, but they voted and
Well, that's a very good point. And is the petitioner aware of the deadlines to set our meetings?
is he aware of?
That we have a deadline?
He is. I've provided him with the, he asked me for the agenda for each meeting.
And just to make sure I absolutely understand, the petitioner's aware that the deadline is Monday and that there will be no subsequent opportunity for him or her to appear.
Well, no, because as I said, the petitioner can come in early next Wednesday, like
Right.
these people who are not, you know.
He knows next Wednesday's the last meeting.
Right.
Okay,
He
okay.
knows that,
Gotcha.
that next Wednesday is the last meeting, and he's very versed in our open meeting law,
Great.
so he knows. So he just said on April 9th, thank you, we'll let you know. I have to imagine the advisory board operates with a little more financial information that's provided in the annual report. He wanted some other spreadsheets. I'm just trying to see what date he said. April 9th, again, I do not think I will be back for the 18th meeting. I can gladly come at the end of the 25th meeting, but in reality, these are pretty self-explanatory articles. Can you please tell me when the police budget's being discussed? So then I asked him to let me know, and on April 9th again, he said, thank you, he will let me know.
I just have a quick question, because obviously we've had petitions come forward to the board. Sorry, I'm Stephanie Ackley. We've had petitions come forward in the past, and typically when petitions are brought, there's a strong agreeance. And so the people that are sort of in favor of the petition come to support the petition that they're presenting. Obviously, here we've got a little bit of an opposite situation going on. So it's just, I'm just thinking of the stretch code and some of the other bylaws that have been presented over the past few years, and the overwhelming support of those petitions. We're not seeing that here from anybody, not even the petitioner himself. So maybe there's some value to that, but I just wanted to point that out, that, you know, we're strongly opposed. There's nobody here to support this right now.
I think that last statement is certainly correct.
My preference would be just vote on this.
Well, there is a motion and a
So-
second, so I think we have no choice but to vote, right?
Oh, was there a second on the
I second.
There was.
motion to
This is the discussion. prior to
indefinitely
the vote.
postpone?
Eventually, we have to get to a vote.
Yep.
Is there a filibuster? Is there?
So, all right, so all in favor to indefinitely postpone Article 11 relative to the town hall schedule, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That would be me. I'm going to be opposed, just because I much rather voted today.
No, no, no. The vote was to indefinitely postpone the article.
Oh, I misunderstood. So,
You want to call it
So-
again, Steve?
no.
Recall that
So,
vote?
yeah, I'll recall my vote, so.
Can you?
I misunderstood what you said. I thought you wanted to
Yep.
vote again postpone it and vote next week. I misunderstood what you
Definitely
said.
definitely postpone it,
Yeah.
period.
Right.
So you need to do
I
an
understand.
official all in favor, so
Yep, so,
everybody can say aye.
right, so all in favor on definitely postponing Article 11, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed this time? Passes unanimously.
Well done, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks so much.
It's a critical crowd, it's careful.
It
Thanks
is,
for
I
coming
know.
out.
I know, they're all government people, right?
Yeah.
To be
This
careful.
will only vote so that if everyone agrees to stay until the end of the meeting.
Right, so we have company, we won't get lonely.
Hey, we have more meeting going on, everyone.
Yeah, what are you leaving for?
Well, we have Jack, though.
But this is one of the
We
fun
have
ones.
Jack. How much more do you want?
He's not next.
Look at, Mrs. Green's gonna stay. That's nice. I know.
Oh,
You doing the other petition?
He's my
Doing
BFF.
the other petition now?
12?
I'm asking, I'm not directing.
We can.
Did you want to speak to the other petition, Jack?
Yeah, but if you want to get other stuff out of the way, I'm fine.
Okay, so do you want to?
Yeah, why don't we have Rich McCarthy, our town planner, talk to us about you have a few articles.
Yes.
And 15, I believe, is your first.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder, should we circulate a copy of the warrant to the audience? I'm not sure they all know what number 12 is.
15.
15, or any number.
Got it.
Got it.
That one.
No?
Have an earlier version of the warrant, so.
Pardon me.
All right, Rich, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
It's the hour, not the company.
The zoning article for the affordable housing development bylaw, there's a few changes proposed to the bylaw. One change that's proposed is to actually, the way the existing bylaw is written, an applicant knows they have to do a 10% set aside for affordable housing, but it doesn't tell them when they need to apply to the board for the special permit that's required as part of a set aside. So the proposed change is to alert an applicant to know that you need to file. You can file simultaneously. That would be the preferable option, but if you don't, at least within 90 days after the prior approval is taken, that you file. For example, the planning board recently approved the subdivision plan on Medway Street, and there was affordable housing as part of that. There's one affordable lot, and the applicant hasn't applied yet. So working through that particular subdivision more recently, and there was another one previous to that, we thought it'd be advisable to direct applicants when, you need to do this. It is a requirement, and this bylaw is separate from the other one, so to have them work together more in sync. That's one proposed change. Another change to the bylaw is the town completed the housing production plan last October. And one of the things they suggested was that perhaps instead of creation of an affordable unit or a rehab of affordable unit, either on-site or off-site, to have a payment in lieu given to the town, which could then be given to the Affordable Housing Trust for additional affordable housing. So what it does, it gives the town an option when the applicant comes in. There may be a case where that may make sense. It's the choice of the planning board in this particular instance, so an applicant could offer that up, and it could be done in combination. So for example, let's say there's 2 affordable units that are required as part of the development. One could be done on-site with the development or off-site, and then the amount of money that would be for that second unit could be given to the trust for the creation of affordable housing if they wanted to do it. That really requires, so in those particular instances, taking payment in lieu really needs a coordination work with the Affordable Housing Trust. If they have a particular idea of maybe a house that they wanted to purchase and then rehab that's coming online, then maybe the cash in lieu of an affordable unit makes sense. But in this particular instance, it's something that the planning board could say yes or no. So it's not, it's not but it's just another option that would be available as part of providing affordable housing. The third change is actually setting up the sequencing in a more uniform way of when affordable housing as part of a development needs to occur. And one of the things that when this bylaw was originally done several years ago, it was based off a model from the state as far as how to do affordable housing inclusionary zoning. And I went back and looked at some of the literature from the state. And essentially, in that particular case, they based it on a large-scale development, and the numbers that they use make sense if you had a large-scale development. But we have a variety of scale developments, and particularly more on the smaller side. And the way this schedule is, it's very clear how many units of housing, if you're doing 10, when you're going to need to provide the affordable unit. Because the way it's presently written, it's more subjective, it leaves more interpretation for the board in one sense and the applicant on the other. And I think by doing this change, which the planning board did support, by the way, I should have mentioned that earlier, that the things that I'm talking about were supported by the planning board. They're going to hold their required public hearing on these articles next Wednesday night on April 25th. But I'm just giving you a preview of, I presume they'll vote favorably since we talked about these things prior to that. Having the scheduling straightforward, I think, will make life a lot easier because some of these smaller developments do an inclusionary zoning and providing affordable housing. In some cases, new to them, so it's there is a ramp up speed as far as knowing what you need to do administratively. So that's the proposed change to the affordable bylaw. And that's. You want me to pause there? Any questions on that? And we'll go to the next one.
Yeah, can I start with a quick question? In the provision for the affordable units schedule with respect to the market rate units, that section's new. That's what's being added.
So what you see on page 7,
Yep.
the top table there, that's what exists today. It's
right.
being that's being
It's being
struck.
replaced with the table
And
below.
the table below,
Okay.
correct.
So my question is actually maybe not so much on what's being changed, but maybe just the bylaw language as it exists. So I apologize if this is a little sidebar. But if you look at term 3 above that, It says, here's the, we're setting out the timing of when you have to build the affordable units. In no event should the development of the affordable units be delayed beyond this schedule. What's the impact or penalty or ramification if they are? What is the enforcement around that? So, I mean, my question is, if we're going through and updating the schedule, but there didn't appear to be any language around what if that schedule is not abided by, or what is the impact to the developer if they choose not to follow that? I didn't see that outlined in
the
current bylaw. It just says don't do it, but what's the
don't
or
do
else?
it. So this schedule would be incorporated into a special permit that would be part of the planning board, which would then be recorded with the registry of deeds. So this is a permit. So if theoretically if they violate, it'd be a violation of the permit, subject to being fined for failure to comply with the bylaw. What we do to be kind of a companion to this, to make sure it happens, is that as part of the permitting side of it, the subdivision, if it was a subdivision case, we would tie the sequencing together so that way the town would get the affordable lot. So for example, say you have a 10-lot subdivision, and this is actually what's going to take place in this case, they will not release all the lots. So they'll release a group of lots, and then the rest of them are under a covenant, which is a restriction, so you can't build on them until that covenant is removed. So what would happen is they would have to get the covenant removed, and in that they would have to provide the affordable housing. So there's kind of, they'll work together in sequence to prevent that from happening. But they are, at the end of the day, they are subject to a fine if they do that. But they really shouldn't, because if you take, again, if you're doing 10, you're gonna have to do 1, and you're not gonna get to number 7, until you get that affordable. So you're not going past 6 on your way to 10 unless we have that affordable. So that's kind of the mechanism that we would have to hold it.
I just have a question. I want to go to the on-site, off-site piece. So I served on the CPC for 5 or 6 years, I can't remember, but in discussing and giving money toward the Affordable Housing Trust, one of our greatest concerns was that affordable housing become part of neighborhoods as opposed to removing it and sectioning it off. And making it so that those units fit into neighborhoods. So for me, that's a concern, that the option for the builder is to take the affordable unit out of the subdivision or the complex or whatever it's going to be, because I think that we don't have a lot of affordable housing in town. We know that we are really deficient there, and in order to keep people from feeling, ghettoized, I think and it's kind of a strong word, but I think we need to think about why we would want to take an affordable unit out of a nice neighborhood.
Yeah, and I think the sense of things, for the most part, from what I've heard, and I think generally speaking, I think the stronger side of the argument would be for the creation of the unit, whether it's on-site or off-site, as opposed to getting the payment in lieu. I think the off-site stuff, some of that discussion was, it had to be a really good situation where it made sense for the town to go outside of that development.
But I mean, it could be abused based on relationships. We've seen things like that in other towns, not this one, of course, but in other towns where you can have things happen where somebody gets a better deal than somebody else. And I just think that to provide the option really sets, to me, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel fair or equitable. It feels like if you want to build 10 units, then you build your affordable unit on site with your other market rate units. That's the whole point of affordable housing, in my opinion.
And I think I agree with you, and I think, as Rich said, I think the goal still would be to from what I've heard from the planning board, from Affordable Housing Trust, from everybody, is that the best scenario is to still build it within the neighborhood. But I think there have been situations in the past where the inclusionary bylaw wasn't in place. But if you think of Keeney Pond, where we're building $1.5 to $2 million homes, it would be and we didn't have to go through that process to ask them to make a proposal to put an affordable house in the middle of that neighborhood. But I think that if that was the case, without some really good creativity, that house would stick out in the middle of that neighborhood. So that might be a situation where the planning board would grant, take a cash in lieu of, or allow them to build an affordable house someplace where an affordable house would fit into the neighborhood, better. I mean, we've got houses on Boardman Street and other places in town where you don't know that they're affordable houses. But I think there also could be possibilities where there are neighborhoods, particularly very high-end neighborhoods, where they might not fit in. And again, the goal would be to make them, have them be creative and come up with proposals to make them look like they're part of the neighborhood. But we also don't want to have one house be significantly different than the other houses in that neighborhood.
Jack, I'd like to see it be a very high bar.
Yep.
I mean, I would be really disappointed if I thought that was the direction we were heading in, that we wanted to, section off affordable housing. I mean, for me, that, and all the time I spent on CPC, that would really disappoint me. And that was one of the things that we talked about when we were a committee. So
I don't think we're trying to section it off by this.
I'm not saying you're trying to,
But-
or anybody's trying to. I'm saying it could happen. And this makes it more possible.
In some instances, so in some subdivisions, they're building, 3,500 square foot homes, 4,500 square foot homes. The affordable buyer is so strapped because of their income levels going in that to put them in a home that's 3,500 or 4,500 square feet, you're setting them up to fail. I mean, they'll tell you that they will openly say, I mean, I had some of the people that applied for some of our larger homes say, I love the home, but I don't think I can afford the heat,
Sure.
the maintenance with the larger yards. But, and you don't want the house in any way, shape, or form to be identified from the outside as an affordable. That's what we want them,
Right,
exactly
correct.
like you said.
But so that's where the creativity, I just want it to be a high bar.
It's a high bar. And I think the one instance that we went off-site, the town got an extra affordable home.
Yeah, I think that was the case,
Right. We
in that
got,
case.
So that allowed us to put another family that otherwise wouldn't have. So, I think I speak for everybody when I say, ideally, it's not the first thing you look at. But in some subdivisions, you have to get creative.
Right.
Because,
And I do hear what you're saying, but again, I want to make sure that it's a last option, not a first option. Yeah.
Right.
Like
But
it just-
the town drives the bus, right?
Yeah, that's the point.
Absolutely,
It's
the
up to
town
the,
does the bus.
so the bus going off is really the town going off, so to speak, so it's not the developer. I will say that in a particular case, with this one that's coming up, there was discussion about going off-site, and the bus got back to the site. So, and that's with the existing bylaw, we're not talking about, and we're actually, this amendment is just talking about cash in lieu, not on-site, off-site, but just for additional information that became part of, no, we want to have it on the site.
Okay.
So that, I can at least tell you that. And once that one goes through, we want to stay on top of this to make sure that, absolutely, you want to have it in the neighborhood, but there are those compelling things that you want to make sure that they feel comfortable in that neighborhood as well. Because, those are ultimately some things we need to think about. But so those are the, hopefully I answer your question enough about the safeguard protection, I think, or?
That was you.
Well, I guess, going back to that, maybe I'd frame it as, have we needed to enforce it in the past? Have developers been holding up their end of the bargain without getting the cattle prod to do so?
We did uphold it, didn't we, Jack, with
I think,
Pulte development?
well, the Pulte one was, no, we didn't have to, because they did it off-site, so we did not have to use the cattle prod, I think was your term. The only time it's come up is in some ones that are in the planning stages now, I mean, the one on Medway that Rich is talking about, he wanted to really push the envelope and have the affordable unit be the last unit that he built.
Yeah.
And that raised red flags for us. And he said he had financial reasons why he wanted to do that, and we understood that, but our fear was that he would get the 9 market rate units done and then walk away and not take the loss on the affordable unit, so.
Can I ask a quick follow-up, if that's okay? What percentage affordable units does the town need to get out of the 40B situation? Is it
So right now, the 2010 census says that we need 311 affordable homes, right, Rich? And I believe we have 161.
61.
So
And
do you know what
heck
that
of a lot
is
better than it
from
used
a,
to be.
do you know what that is from a percentage perspective of
We're at
total
like
houses?
4.69, 4.7, right around there. However, in 2020, we're getting a new census,
Yeah.
and the number will
We're
be
at
higher.
4, no, we need to get to 4.7?
No, we're at
We need to be at
4.7.
10%.
We need it to be at 10%. Okay, so, sorry if this is, again, a out of left field question, but if we need to be at 10%, looking at this new table, right, if someone's building a 19-unit development, we are requiring 1 affordable unit. That's 5%, that's less than 5%. So ostensibly, we could have developer after developer after developer coming in building 19-unit developments under 40B, and we'll never get to the 10% at that rate.
40B is different. If it's a 40B project, 25% of them have to be
Have to be.
affordable.
Okay, so
that's a different,
But I guess then the question though is maybe why
I think
are these percentages too low? Meaning, should we not set a higher bar for more
Higher
units
percent of-
than just less than 5%? Because, while 40B, I guess I understand is different, will every one of these 19-unit developments that's built that introduces 1 affordable unit at 5%, 5% of what's being built would be affordable, we're just moving that bar further and further out on 40B. We'll never get to the 10% at that rate. We'll never get there.
but I
Well,
think,
theoretically, the inclusionary bylaw in its concept is to kind of keep you whole. So when you have something that comes to market rate, to keep you above, keep you level, so it washes out the numbers. If you're talking about increasing the percent so that it provides even additional affordable housing beyond 10%.
Well,
I think he's just suggesting that the 19 becomes 16, the 29 becomes 26.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm asking is that the reason, and maybe I don't understand all the nuances here, but the reason that we want this bylaw where there's affordable housing is to, for the benefit of it in and of itself, but also to help get to that 40B requirement, correct, of getting to that 10%.
I think,
But with these percentages, the way this table is outlined, we'll never get to the 10% because if we are for every 19 units that get built, we are going to have 1 that's affordable. We're going to be moving backwards in that number. I don't know how we'd ever fill that gap, how we would get to the 10% if this expectation of for every 19 that are built, 1 is affordable. We're just moving backwards in the goal to get to 10% rather than towards it.
I think, and Rich has more experience in this than I do, but I'll chime in first, if I can. The inclusionary bylaw is at 10%, and as you're right, until you get, it gets to be, it's 10%. If you build 10, it drops below that, and as you get up to 19, and then at 20, it goes back up to 10%. And so, as Rich says, it's trying to keep our head above water or at water, and have us at that 10% level. The inclusionary bylaw is that 10% calculation is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's driven that's a competitive, when we look at other towns, we look at what they do. And so we're comparing what other towns do, and we're trying to, we want, we're not trying to put the no back in Norfolk, if you will, as we've had it. We want development to a point. You know, development's our best thing in town and also the worst thing in town. But we don't want to certainly discourage all development in town. But the other thing that you got to compare it to is the 40B. If you get closer to that 25%, then that is more of an incentive for the developers to say, all right, I don't even want to, you know, I'm not going to, if I got to build 20%, I might as well go 25% and avoid all the local bylaws, and I can create much more density, and it's a much better scenario for them just to go to 40B. And I think that's the real driver in this situation. But as I said, Rich has worked for a few other towns and probably has more experience with this.
I mean, there is a balance you are trying to create, so we do provide affordable housing that is non-40B and not push them over to 40B as well, because if, you know, what a good percent of what we have right now is 40B wise is ownership, so you know, you're getting 25% of that, but 75% isn't, so the number keeps jumping up. So we could look at, we're really talking about the midpoint, you know, so the midpoint of every grouping of 10. So it's, I know you use 19, but it could be 16, right? So once you're, you know, you could do 17. We don't round, and that's the thing, it's not being rounded. I think that's really more where you're going in a way.
Well, maybe I misunderstood. The way I was reading this table is if someone were to build a 19-unit development,
Yep,
there only needs to be one affordable unit as
Right.
part of the 19.
right.
Right.
But it keeps
18. Right, its second AU is prior to the 19th.
prior to the.
So, a nit, but, yeah.
Prior to 19.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Drive around and. see
Doesn't
how
really
many
change
round
your argument.
Subdivisions you see.
Right.
Well, that's kind of why I was curious, is you know, it just, I understand the balance, so we don't want to necessarily incent more 40Bs
Right.
either, but, and while I admit this is probably the least informed person on these matters, you know, I will say, I fear that this is counterintuitive, in that the more we encourage development with 5% affordable units, the more we're going to get stuck with 40Bs because we're moving further away from the target number. So we're more susceptible to them. Right, so again,
But really, Jonathan, if you have, do you know how many 20-unit subdivisions or 25-unit subdivisions or even 50-unit subdivisions at 10% it would take for us to get to 311?
that's why I was suggesting maybe it shouldn't be 10%. It should be,
Higher.
I think we should try to get there aggressively. And
Again, if we go to 20%, then they're just going to go to 25.
Then it's
Right,
gonna
they're
go
gonna-
40B.
And take advantage of the denser.
20 lots on 1 acre.
yeah, but
Yeah,
then at
that's
least we
what-
get to the number and be done with it.
Because I think,
Well, you don't get to that number as quick as you think. 'cause
Right.
yeah. Well, I'm also just wondering, I mean, there's a number we're trying to hit. I worry it's maybe a little bit more complicated than that. How do other towns hit this? I mean, maybe you're buying older properties and retrofitting them rather than trying to create, you know, and I'm also wondering how many people actually achieve this goal? I mean, what do other towns do?
So the new,
Large apartments.
Large apartment
Yeah.
complexes, that's how they achieve it.
I'm just,
So
I'm
what
I'm wondering where this language comes from. I mean, this is,
yeah, so this language here is actually from a model bylaw that the state puts out for communities to utilize for inclusionary zoning. So it's a template, if you will. And
including the numbers, this is just what
so
their recommendations are?
the chart that we came up with was really applying these numbers. Like I said to you, when you sit down with a development on a smaller size, the schedule that we have right now became problematic, so we got into this. Well, I want to provide the affordable unit. I'm trying to think. After the 10th unit.
Well, I'm not as concerned about the timing, we're just talking about the numbers, the percentages. I understand that
Yeah,
there's a risk.
these are standard numbers, 10%.
Yeah, so we're not changing, so Rich is not changing the 10% number. That's at
Yeah.
the top of page 6.
Right.
Okay. I just don't want it to set such a high
Timing of
number
when
that then
that
people
unit
don't
has
build
to be
here at
built.
all, in which
No,
case
no,
then
it's
our number
10%. I
gets
think
lower.
the 10% didn't change. I think this table kind of focuses you on numbers a little bit more than it was.
So I apologize for the sidebar. The fact that now you pointed it out, if the numbers aren't changing, this does seem like an improvement to
Absolutely.
force it to happen sooner and prevent people from walking away. So
Steve, you had a,
that's,
Yeah, it's actually Arlie's been very patient over here as well, so.
Just with regard to the drafting and the language of this, and the optionality component of it, the first line is an applicant may contribute funds, which, as I read it, gives the applicant the option. Then somewhere down the bottom third, it says if the SPGA
Special permit
Special-
granting authority.
issues a special permit to authorize a cash payment in lieu of, and the Board of Trustees of the Norfolk Municipal Affordable Housing Trust votes to accept, the payment shall be paid. Okay, so can the applicant make a contribution and it not be accepted and still be compliant with this? And seems absurd, but I guess that's it seems like this is kind of phrased backward, right, relative to the priorities how you described. Then the next to last sentence, alternatively, the SPGA may allow payment of said countries. The SPGA may allow payment of said countries according to blah, blah, blah. So in the next to last sentence, the Board of Trustees of the Norfolk Municipal Affordable Housing Trust no longer appear.
Yeah, ultimately, it's the planning board who's the special permit granting authority that would be issuing the permit.
Right.
They would be doing it, again, in consultation with the Affordable Housing Trust to make sure they would want to do it,
Right.
to get the money. But ultimately, it's not, it's the planning board permit who's the granting authority for it. So that's why they're at the end of the line who the permit would be granted from.
They're
I mean, they're the
also,
ones, it's their permit, so the Affordable Housing Trust doesn't have any permitting authority in this case. They're advisory, but they would be the ones who.
so let me rephrase the question. Then. How come the difference in the wording of the next to last sentence and the sentence beginning if the SPGA issues? Why is the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust present in the first of the two and absent in the last?
I think the said contributions refers to the contributions in the prior sentence.
So it references.
And it's an alternative means of payment of the cash specified in the prior sentence.
Well, then, but you don't think it refers to the contributions that are in the first 5 words of the first sentence?
It does make it sound like it's the builder's option.
Right. I think the intent is different, but if
Right.
were I to read this, I would say,
Right.
well, and I were a developer, I would say, well, okay, it's my option, because I may do it. So it really is it's a question, does the language to me does not look like it captures the intent as it was described here, and I fully endorse the intent, and Peg, I think you made some very good observations here, but maybe it works if you're a really good lawyer and can understand the stuff, but if...
What that says, those two sentences say to me is that you can pay in advance, or you can pay said contributions in a timetable.
So you pay up front, or you can pay according to a schedule which they approve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It's a
the
lot of
way I
words
read
to say
that.
that.
Is
This
that the
model
intent?
language is never very
Yeah.
model.
Right, oh, I see. And the Board of Trustees doesn't have any input on that schedule.
I think they have input on the amount up front, right? Just not the schedule, whether it's up front or over time, I think.
Well, I trust there are lawyers who can actually read and understand this, but I frankly think the way it's presented doesn't capture the intent as you described it. It seems right up front to give the option.
So
and
say,
then
for example, and probably example would be better, the planning board would consult the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Yes, we want to receive payment. And then the applicant says, and the trust says, well, we want it all up front. And, in the permitting process, the applicant says, well, I'll give you, quarter, a half, or whatever the planning board could.
Yeah, I think I can see that interpretation. It was a strain for me to understand that, having gone through it. But if this is a template that has been blessed by the state and other people can understand, then I'm all for it. But it would not have.
Yeah, it is. Granted, it's not the.
Is there a way to rework it so it's more clear? I mean, do we have that option to rework it and?
I suppose we could.
Can't you just say at the sole discretion of the SPGA, the applicant may contribute funds? Make it something like that?
Certainly could revise the language.
That'd be great.
You'd have to run it by a lawyer to make sure you weren't somehow catching yourself elsewhere.
And then they have to have the planning board agree. I think it's a
It's
little.
subject to the consultation of the planning board.
Yeah, whatever.
Approval, whatever.
My reading of this is that you have, generally, the planning board wants the applicant to make the first move, if you will. And they're saying, in this case, the applicant may contribute funds if they get a special permit. So I'm not, I don't think you want I don't think you'd want to start that with, at the sole discretion of the special permitting grant, an applicant can contribute funds, because they're going to want again, to Peg's point, they're going to want they don't want to have that be their primary focus. They want the applicant to come up with a traditional inclusionary plan and build it within the subdivision.
I just can't quite get over the first sentence, which seems to me to clearly give it the option to the applicant, not to the SPGA. Subsequent, again, I hear the intent, I just don't, the language is not straightforward.
Alternatively, is tripping up, right, I think, to a degree?
No, it's the first 5 words.
Applicant may contribute funds.
Right.
Well, but I think that's trying to say, look, you can pick 1, 2, or 3. So the applicant may construct or rehabilitate on the locus, which means I think this building is there.
Oh, yeah,
2 is
yeah,
saying the
right.
applicant may construct or rehabilitate on a different locus, or the applicant may, it's
Right.
weird, because
No, but
I would put applicant may up here and then have the colon with 1, 2, and 3.
that gives the applicant the option.
The choice.
Yes,
Right.
But that's
But
not
that's
what we're
not what we-
saying. We're not
Well,
saying they have the option,
but
right?
all these things are subject to.
Unless they get a
the-
special permit.
Yeah, so the permit people decide.
Right, but I'm saying they can propose any 3 of them.
Right, so-
How would you propose it otherwise? The applicant must do this, because this is what we want.
Or they can cut a deal and do it over time.
But I think this is saying that the applicant can propose any one of these 3 things, and that the planning authority will then consider.
No, but it says the applicant may contribute, as opposed to the applicant can make a proposal that.
I hear what you're saying. So the way I would change it is under A at the top, it says, right, or at least 10% of the divisions, okay, in any one or combination of the methods provided for below. I just want that to indicate there's 3 ways to then do that.
I'm just going to take a moment and recognize our audience member here. Maybe someone can shed some light.
Anthony Turi, Assistant Town Clerk. I wanted to draw your attention to the previous page. It actually starts off with 1, as a condition of approval for a special permit. And then it begins that list. So this is all contingent on the special permitting authority and all that. And so there's not as much discretion on the builder's side.
But I think that under that 3rd alternative paragraph, the whole applicant may contribute funds, it's just kind of dangling there. It's like, where did that come from? I just think that kind of weakens back on page 5, as a condition for approval, you shall contribute to the local stock by picking door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3, and then proposing it. Is that not the intent here?
Oh, I believe, I always just wanted to point out that
Well, yeah,
I think
but,
that the shall to do
what's-
something is in that previous sentence.
What this amendment would do is add door number 3. And in addition to adding door number 3, there can be a combination of 1, 2, or 3. That's what this,
So can we just say contribute funds, not an applicant may?
I don't think we're going to rewrite it on the fly.
The
But that's-
the SPGA may allow, I mean, that covers it, I think. I'm not seeing the difficulty here.
Rich, did you say the ZBA has already reviewed this and that,
planning board.
planning board, I'm sorry.
They reviewed it in draft going to be included on the warrant, and then they'll have the public hearing next Wednesday night.
We have an audience question.
Just a quick question. Knowing that this is going to be put in place and it all takes time to put in writing and get in act, knowing that the 2020 census is fast approaching, is there anything that we can do, since we are going to possibly be rewriting this, to consider future development, the new numbers that we're going to be presented with in 2020? Because obviously the community is growing rapidly. We have development. Can we get some guesstimates? I hate to say that, but is there a way that we can get more accurate numbers on what we'd be expecting in 2020, so that what we're writing today is effective in 2020, and that we don't have to revisit this in the future?
So I can partly answer the question for you. I do have at least a running idea of all the permitting and new construction that's occurred since 2010 to the present, and what's already been constructed under permits. We'll need 350 affordable units to get to 10%.
As compared to 311.
Compared to 311. So we're already behind, and we already have, we have one,
Again, I think
two.
that's outside. That'd be something, that'd be another task for the planning board to look at, you know, to.
But it still gets back to, I think, we're, as part of the larger picture of the housing production plan, that laid out a variety of different ways to achieve getting to 10%. This is just one of those tools, which is to add in the allowance for cash in lieu of payment. And particularly, I mean, I wasn't there when this plan was being developed, but I suppose because, you know, the town does have the Community Preservation Act, and the town does have, you know, affordable housing component of responsibility, the Community Preservation Committee, that if you take some money from a development and you take some money from the CPA Act, if you pool those resources, you may be able to produce more affordable housing to bump up the number. So that's kind of the driver to add this provision in here, is for communities who don't have the Community Preservation Act, cash in lieu is really not a good option, because you don't really, you know, there's not grants out there to go construct affordable housing necessarily. So they're not as, I would say, interested in it. But again, at the end of the day, applicant proposes, the planning board decides. So it's not, you know, it's not the,
Not a green light.
it's not a green light. It
Right.
would be done in consultation. For example, I mean, just the scenario I just told you, the one we just had right now, we have another subdivision at the planning board before them right now. It's 22 lots. They're just going to be doing units on site. So there was no discussion of, you know, off-site or even payment in lieu, so.
Well, and again, I think we have to, you know, trust our elected officials and our appointed folks to make the right call on these things. But I do think that, you know, the language is still not perfect, and it really needs to be looked at. That's me.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go back through
Maybe
it,
come back
revisit
next
it,
week.
and talk to, what?
I said maybe bring it back next week. Can we do that?
With planning boards being the same time as you? Yeah.
But, you know, if you make some changes, I can certainly get it before the advisory board
Yeah.
to take.
Look forward to it's just the way it starts out, I guess, in 3, right? If I'm clear, that's the trip up an applicant may contribute? Is that at the end of the day,
That's the reservation I have. I think
Okay.
a straightforward reading of it says that you can build it or you can contribute cash. And then you wind down through language that seems to say something different.
okay.
But I would just eliminate any, I'm confused. I'm not a lawyer or an expert in this, and I think. it
Well, we
could-
have a small setting, we gotta go to town meeting, which is a much larger setting, so if we can make some changes to clean it up, to make it clear, then, I mean, if we don't affect the intent, then,
So,
makes sense.
is your concern that the builder could just say, oh, I don't want to do A or B, I don't want to do 1 or 2, I want to do number 3?
Yeah.
Right, and
Okay,
number 3
but
says I
that's-
may.
Right, but I think your point, I'm sorry, I forgot your name,
Anthony.
Anthony. I had a long day today, everybody, I'm sorry. So, but as Anthony points out, right, but the number 1, on the bottom of page 5, that's not really accurate, because it's saying as a condition of approval, the special permit, right? So they have to go to the planning board, and they're gonna approve the special permit, and as part of that process, then it's either gonna be on page 6, 1, 2, or 3. But it's gonna be, all that's going to,
Right, but Arlie's point is that, or maybe it was Rich's point, here we are, a group that talks about this stuff often, and maybe has served on other committees, and we're a little confused, so let's clean it up, make it clear, and have something for town meeting that is bulletproof.
But even with
I
that
understand what his
clarified,
point was.
but even with that clarified, I want to make sure, you think that by adding option 3, that's going to be more affordable housing in our future, not less? You guys felt there was a need to add the third option, right?
Yeah.
It used to be build it on-site, build it off-site, the end. Now we're saying build it on-site, build it off-site, or
Give us
also in
money.
combination with a cash payment.
It was one of the things in our housing production plan that the consultant came in and made a recommendation. I mean,
I expect you'll get questions about that at annual meeting or town meeting, I mean. You know, why is this a benefit?
well, because it's going to, I mean, you're not gonna take the deal unless it's a good deal, you know, the town isn't gonna accept in lieu of unless it's beneficial to the town.
I guess it's just hard to imagine how getting cash would be even more beneficial than putting housing in
Because maybe I
place.
can buy
Wait,
2 homes for the
It's like the
amount
town
of
is
cash.
selling out instead of doing the right thing.
No, but maybe the trust can buy 2 homes with the amount of cash.
Some people should say
instead of
that.
1 home.
Great, folks should just say that, that's all
Or
I'm
in
saying.
that $1.5 million development, maybe 5 homes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Those are great arguments as to why 3 is a good idea.
Yeah, I think maybe the easier thing would
some
be provide
cases.
some examples of, you know, why.
Just make it clear for people, I mean,
Yeah.
Why it's a benefit.
It's a better, it'll go faster, and people will understand it.
And
Yeah.
clarify the language for what I was
Right.
talking about. That's all that I have.
I guess I'm still dealing with Pat, and I struggle with, so that paragraph A, it says 10% of the units in the division of land shall be subject to be developed, subject to this bylaw, shall be established as affordable units in any of the combination of methods provided below. You can either construct within, construct without,
Right.
or provide cash.
Right.
I guess I'm struggling with where the confusion is there.
Because it doesn't say provide cash, it says an applicant may contribute funds, the way it reads is it just, yeah. That's how I took it too. For some reason, I thought there's more applicant discretion in 3 than 1 or 2, because you got the word may, and they may
I mean,
contribute.
but the houses that are built in 1 or 2 have to be all approved by the planning board. They can't just build a 100-square-foot house and call it an affordable house.
But that's not
So-
here. I'm just saying, based on the raw text of the language, that's why, to me, I understand what you mean, the actual.
I know, but I think each of those provisions, 1, 2, and 3, are all subject to the special permit. So the builder couldn't build a 100-square-foot house in a subdivision and say, oh, that's my contribution.
Well, I don't think that anybody suggested that, Jack. I think what
Well,
we're
that's-
trying to say is that it makes it sound like that the option is there for them to do 1, 2, or choose 3.
Subject to the special
I mean,
permit.
I know, but,
Subject to the SPGA approval.
well, I hear that, but I personally don't think the language is as clear as it could be.
So
I
what
don't
if,
see what the big deal is about changing the language and making it clearer. It's just not that big a deal.
so you could say may be in front of number 1 and 2. And
Yeah,
it's,
I think we can sharpen the pencil, come up with something. again, but we want to make it so that it's,
I can hear questions at town meeting, and I think it would be better if it was really clear.
yeah. Well, it's a pretty big, paragraph there, so.
I don't have any other questions.
Point taken, we can.
All right, anything else on this? No? All right, let's move on to 16.
Uh-huh. Exercise. Well, exercise in aerobic studio, right? Is that the next
That's
one?
it.
Yep, that's right.
Yes.
My number's a little bit different here. So there is an exercise studio in town. So first off, in the way we have in the zoning bylaw, we have some uses that are defined, and those are capitalized if you look through different districts, within the zoning bylaw. And then some are lowercase. In some cases, what Bob would do as a zoning enforcement officer, look at a use to see if there's similarity, how it fits in, or if it doesn't fit, if there's no similarity to something relative to a use, then for our bylaw, it's prohibited. In this case, we already have an exercise aerobic studio, which is allowed use in the C4 zone, and there's a yoga studio there that the owner would like to be able to offer massage as one of the things to provide their client. So they approached my office about the ability to do massage. And we prohibit massage parlor, but massage and what this particular owner is looking to do is part of a service to her client. So we didn't have exercise aerobic studio defined, so essentially what this does is define exercise aerobic studio and lists some associated uses that you could find. It does say meditation, right?
It does say meditation.
Excellent, good, all right. Before it said mediation.
Nutrition,
Good.
Steve,
No.
it was mediation.
It was mediation before it wasn't supposed
We
to.
don't allow any mediation in
Yeah.
town.
No.
So it was meditation, nutrition,
Next thing you know,
massage,
people will be
therapy.
dancing.
So to allow those type of services as an accessory to the principal use, which is, again, it lists out the different types of exercise places that are there. So essentially, she would like to offer this service to her clients. It seemed to be within the bounds of what people come to see at different exercise places, so it made reasonable sense. So that's how this proposal came before you.
So we have 2 massage places in B1, right? We have places that offer massage in B1.
We do.
So I don't know, I mean, I guess, because they
No,
fall
I didn't
under
go knocking
something
on
different.
doors. I didn't, she came to me, say, how do I legally do this?
Uh-huh.
And I said, well, this is legally, you can't do it right now in that zone. So we said, look, we can do it this way. The ones there, I don't know if they're accessory or principal, so I didn't go whether they're lawfully there or not.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I know they're there, okay?
They have signage.
Yeah, they do. I know, I'm aware. But,
Which one is this? B1? Where's that?
The business district here.
yeah,
Just on Main,
Yeah.
that's the Main Street one.
I don't know if it's
2
a
of them.
principal use or not. But I didn't go checking, and I'm the planner, so I don't have to enforce zoning necessarily, but,
You were talking about this being for C4, or is this,
yeah.
So-
C4.
Peg was asking about the business district, so I don't know if that.
Well, in the business, it's,
Well, I just wondered, like, what are they considered in B1, the 2? One is a facial spa with massage, and one is a dermatologist with massage and Reiki and body work. So I'm just curious as to the difference between one establishment and another, and I understand the zoning is a little bit different, but they are all business zoned, because there's a coffee shop in C4, and there was a little store, I don't know if it's still there, I think it closed, but, and there's just some other thing, like a bike shop or something,
Yeah, spin type.
Also,
Yeah,
yeah, exercise.
yeah.
where's, Yes, I don't know.
Steve, you've got an audience
You
speaker.
listen to me.
Oh, I'm
Missy.
sorry. I have obstructed view this
That's
evening.
okay. I'm short too.
Mm.
So. My question with this is lumping it with the exercise studio. Does that sort of confine it or restrict? So the other businesses that are going into the C4, even particularly that building, say you have a sports medicine rehab center, now we've got to revisit this whole bylaw and reword all of this language all over again. Is there a better approach so that we're not including the massage as in like the adult district type of massage? Maybe there's better wording so that we're not
So
sort of
this-
pigeonholing
Yeah,
the
so in this
business.
particular case, she didn't, there wasn't any medical activities going on that massage could be a companion to. So that's why medical can do the massage if they want. It's part of their use. But in her case, it was because she's doing, it's a different use category. So we need to,
But it's still therapeutic, the person's still licensed, right?
they are,
Yeah.
they are.
And it would be secondary to the gym or whatever it is.
It is.
Yeah.
It would be secondary to it. You were asking about the one in the center of town. Again, we don't, so for example, we have medical, dental, or optical clinics. It's not defined. So there is some boundary, there's some wiggle room there. So the ones that you're talking about, the B1, maybe they fit under that. And they're there.
So
One's a
each-
facialist, I mean, one's a spa
facial.
kind of.
So each business, goes through a process with the building department and looks at what their primary use is and then looks at their any ancillary uses. So I'm not sure, I mean, Rich is better at this than I am, but I'm not sure, the building commissioner would go through each business as it's proposed and talk about what services they're going to provide and would fit them into a primary use and then also make sure that their ancillary uses are allowed. So, in this case, we're trying to adjust the primary use and include some additional ancillary services. But massage may be in 14 other primary uses, so it's not a simple task to.
Are they always this specific? I mean, let's say that I want to open up a Tai Chi studio. So is that martial arts? I'm just, do we need to be this specific? Can we just say therapeutic or?
It can be. So in the C4 zone, when we get back to that one, massage parlors, they're specifically prohibited.
Oh, interesting.
All right, so
But it's not a massage parlor, it's a
Right.
gym that offers body work and massage.
No, I know, but, I've had discussions in consultation with Bob that it would make sense to have an accessory for her to do yoga, if she wants to do nutrition, et cetera, under that use.
Well, this says which includes but is not limited to, so you guys have the discretion to then, without necessarily a bylaw change, just saying, okay, this is fine. That's the includes but not limited to?
Yes, but they're accessory to the exercise.
Right, so we're saying
Okay.
that an exercise studio is fine, and you can do massage as a side business, but the town is
can't
making a
do-
decision not to do primarily
Sure.
Right.
massage parlor.
Can you also bold this whole thing, if I understand it, what you want to, usually what's bolded is what's new, and you want to include all of this, right? It's not just exercise aerobic studio, which is bolded, it's also all the paragraph underneath it?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I have a.
I think we're just inserting the whole,
Hold on, just a second. Jonathan was next?
Yeah.
For all of our armchair legal expertise in the room, let's play this through, right? Let's say this gets voted down at town meeting and it doesn't pass. So you need to go back to the owner and say, I'm sorry, you can't add massage to your business. And then they say, but what about those yokels over in B1 offering massage? Clearly, it's not in our.
As a recent add-on.
Right, it's not in our bylaws today. Are we creating, so I realize you said you're not going and knocking on doors, and we're not necessarily creating issues where they don't exist, but my concern would be we are going to, if this passes, sure, no harm, no foul, and that business owner isn't going to take exception to it because they've gotten what they have asked for. If it doesn't pass, right, I think we may be creating some legal risk to the town of that business owner potentially making some sort of claim that we are enforcing zoning laws arbitrarily, that
Puritanical.
that their business on one side of the street cannot have massage as an accessory business, but on the other side of the street, it doesn't exist in the zoning laws either, and we're not doing any enforcement of that.
And they're both zoned for business.
Right.
All right, so let's recap it though, hold on, so we don't get too far. B1, you said one is a completely offer massage therapy on their own? I mean, that's a principal use?
No.
No.
It's an
No.
accessory.
So that's my
Accessory.
point. This is a very complicated issue. Each business is looked at as to what their primary business is. So those B1 businesses, sounds like one is a hairdresser or a facial.
Facialist,
I'm not sure
salon.
what their specific is, but they may have an allowable use as a massage therapy as a subsidiary business. There also could be a situation where they are grandfathered. Maybe they were in business before zoning came into effect. So there are all kinds of different situations, so I appreciate your point, and we've had that situation before where we wanted to do a dog business that wasn't allowed in our area, and we tried to, the person raised their hand and said, I have a dog business, what should I do? Well, you're not in compliance now, so we tried to zone it, make it compliant, and the town said no, so we had to go back to them and say, you can't do that. So zoning's not a fun, I don't recommend it as anybody for a career, other than Rich. It is a very difficult business, and you don't make a lot of friends with zoning when you're
Is part of this,
enforcing
is,
it.
again, not looking to create more work for anybody, but is it worth looking into the particulars of the zonings of those businesses in B1 to make sure that we are protected against some kind of legal claim if this doesn't pass?
Well, we're only making a change we're making a change to a different zone,
Yes.
so it's a
we're
little
not-
bit of apples and oranges. But they may, if they want to go, make a claim that, all right, that business that's in a different zone that has different applicable zoning laws, they can make that case. I'm fairly confident that, our zoning enforcement isn't perfect, but we are pretty good at it. And, if there was a problem, we probably would know about it at this point.
So agree, there's not, again, you have different zoning districts, and some uses are allowed in one versus the other, so they're not apples to apples by any means. So if you go through the table, one's allowed, one place is not allowed in another. Not to go on to that point, but I can, as we've been talking, massage therapy, that is allowed in the B1 by special permit through the Board of Appeals. C4, it's prohibited. Same use. So you can't, the town has,
As long as you're consistent inside of the zone.
yeah, so there's a uniformity to it.
Just briefly, please.
Yep. So again, I think just the language, I believe that there's like a lot of pigeonholing going on with this exercise studio, exercise aerobic. Knowing that there's vacant units that are still able to be fulfilled, what if a nail salon goes in? I know the nail salons do massage therapy in a chair, 10 minutes, but they still have to be licensed to do so. There are other businesses that could go in there that aren't necessarily aerobic or exercise that may want to do or offer that service. So I want you to maybe consider the language here, and that if we're working on this for the C4, wouldn't we want to sort of kill multiple birds with one stone if we have the opportunity?
We could do it,
I think,
we could do it
yeah.
two-layer. One is, this was a specific business that came forward to do it. She really, small business operator trying to make a go of it, had no idea. I think, in one sense, I'm trying to be business friendly, so we helped her. I think if I was taking the broader view, I would have said, do it all on your own, and then we would evaluate it, but we didn't want to take that approach with her. We certainly could, if people are comfortable with this, allow this, and then take a look at it in a broader sense, whether it should be more opportunity.
I guess all I'm saying is, we'd be saving other people that would be bringing more business into that retail space. The time and effort that this one woman is having to go through. So she's sort of trailblazing for any future business owners that are going to be moving in and wanting to do a similar line of business.
Is it the word massage that we're all upset about? I mean, shall we call it body work, or can we just change the wording for the poor woman so she can do her business and grow her business in our town?
Right.
Therapeutic services.
No, but I mean, body work or stretching or something like that. I mean, I don't understand why we're all getting hung up on massage, but
I don't think we are. I just think that the old definition didn't include.
I think there's a more old definition of what massage is. I think that people are concerned of some of the bad connotations with massage parlors have.
I mean, we're not there.
No, but this
but
was,
how you define, but same token, you have to be mindful how you define it so that you get what you want and you don't get what you don't want. And I think that's kind of the nuance of this, is to allow somebody to do massage.
But one's a licensed specialty and one's illegal.
right, but I think, I mean, I don't think we're struggling with, I think we're all in favor of adding massage to this.
So how can we help her?
Well, I think,
I
the-
thought we were helping her with this proposed definition
Yeah,
by
I-
doing it this way, to allow her to do this as part of her business model. And she does this exercise yoga studio already, so this would allow her to add that service.
Okay.
And that was the intent of drafting it this way. And balancing off against the existing C4 prohibits massage parlors, but yet the B1 allows it. So there's some intent somewhere along the line to not allow it out there, but it was okay, you know what I mean? Like the town said B1, so we didn't want to really upset the apple cart, so to speak, too much here.
Harley, did you have a point?
Yeah, I'm having a slow night, just on the mechanics of this. So if I read this, Article 16 is to see if the town of Norfolk will vote to amend Section B of the zoning bylaws by adding the following new definition, after earth removal. God knows why it's after earth removal, but.
Just alphabetical, that's
Okay.
it.
But then we get to the end, and then we're going to see if the town of Norfolk will vote to amend Section K7A by deleting exercise aerobic studio and inserting exercise aerobic studio. So.
That's
are
just
we
a
really doing
syntax
both?
because
Capital.
it's capitalized. So right now, if it's not defined use, it's lowercase in our zoning bylaw.
That's
When
shouting.
we define a use, it's all uppercase.
Okay, so there are two distinct actions. It's not as if we are, okay, I see, thank you. May I ask just one more follow-up? And what's the difference between, is there currently anything under earth removal that refers to exercise/aerobic studio, or is this whole use category
It's
new?
all brand new. It's all on its own.
So it's,
That's just an ordering, but just going behind. It's
So-
alphabetical.
okay, great. And then, just to make sure I understand, then we're talking about all these services, not just massage as the incremental allowed uses. Is that correct?
So we're defining what exercise aerobic studio is. There's a variety of different things there: yoga, walking, running, swimming, cycling, etc. And then we're saying that there are some accessory uses that those type of exercise aerobic studios can have, which is meditation, nutrition, and massage therapy as accessory uses.
Okay, none of the things that are listed here are allowed under existing law?
They are.
They are.
They are.
Well-
But we're defining, we are going the next step to define what exercise aerobic studio means. We need to kind of describe what that is.
It's making it more clear. I think.
Yeah.
But this paragraph doesn't exist under current law.
It doesn't exist.
Not in the definition section. The definition section is where that first part will go. But in the zoning thing that says what you can do in that zone, it just said exercise aerobic studios in small letters. And so that, at some point when that was written, everybody may have understood exactly what that meant, including all the ancillary services. But now as time goes on and the scope becomes broader as to what those folks may want to, we want to define that better. So we're really just taking that old understood definition, expanding on it, and clarifying it in the definition section.
And the final sentence is what you refer to as ancillary uses. And the things that go on in the first sentence, they're primary uses.
Correct.
And primary and ancillary is a meaning in the.
It does have
zoning.
meaning in zoning, yes.
Thank you.
Just in terms of formatting, so what makes it a lot easier to read from my perspective is when the new stuff isn't bold and the stuff that you're removing has a bit of the language and a strikeout.
Gotcha, yep, yep.
Because here I can't tell what you're, by first glance, you know, where it is what you're putting in end and what you're taking out begin. So you bolded exercise aerobics, like,
But they're not taking it in.
Yeah, the whole
The whole thing is new, right?
right, so you should bold the whole thing, like if you
Yeah,
go
the
back to
whole-
page 6.
right.
Oh, I see.
All the
Yeah.
bolded language is new on page 6, but on page
I understand, yeah.
8
The
it's
whole
not.
definition for exercise studio should be bold.
Yes, but, you know, aerobics studio, all that stuff, right?
I think I'm going to move on. Unless there's, right, everybody, I think we've talked a lot about this. I'm also going to go out of order slightly because you still have a couple of more articles, Rich. So I think I'm going to let Carol sneak in here because she has one. And, and then she can go home.
I thought she was staying because of me.
That could be true.
She said that.
Partially true.
Liar.
So, so Carol Glean, our town clerk, is going to talk to us about Article 14, which is to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws, Section 1, by deleting Tuesday and replacing it with Saturday. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, guys. When Jack presented this, I apologize that I wasn't here because I understand that there was some questions over this. And I just wanted to present what my motivation was to moving this to Saturdays. It's actual, the one thing that's throwing people is the language. The annual town election is actually Article 1 of town meeting. So that's the town meeting we're just moving the election. That's it. We're not moving town meeting to Saturdays. I know there was a lot of confusion over that. But the verbiage is there because it is Article 1 of town meeting. One of the reasons, well, there's actually multiple reasons why I wanted to move it. It's primarily for less disruption of the kids' day. As it stands right now, the kids don't get to use the gym. The kids can't go outside to play. We have issues with traffic. I have people, I work with Chief Stone and Matt to try to create as safe an environment as we can, but we have people driving around barricades. I had a gentleman drive over the curb and run over a tree, one of the small trees. Thank goodness it wasn't a small child. It's just, it's a hard to manage situation over there. We have put on additional details, so now not only do I have, I'm required by law to have an officer in the polls, but for every election, we discuss, what kind of outside, so I'm putting a detail on each end of buses. I'm putting somebody in the parking lot. We're just trying to do anything we can to keep the kids safe. The other issue is when the school is open for an election, the school is open to anybody. And as we all know, that's becoming an issue. I have no control over state elections. They're always going to be on Tuesdays. But this would at least give us, with the town election every other year, we'd have no elections and no disruption of the school. So it's just trying to make a better situation. And on Saturdays, I understand there's sports, and I know that was one of the concerns. And you also have a lot of extra set of eyes, too. You have parents there, you have grandparents there, you have coaches there, and it's kind of in two different areas. And one of my hopes was maybe to even talk to Chief Stone about, I know it's not 100% enforceable, but we can put up the big light-up sign, voter entrance only, try to keep the two separate. But so that was my motivation for wanting to move it, just trying to create a better situation, with the schools for, even if it's only one election, it's still one election.
Peg?
I think it's commendable, and I totally hear your point. My worry is turnout on Saturdays because of all those parents that are down at the Pond Street fields and out of town with travel soccer or wherever, that people aren't going to vote. And we have a hard enough time now getting people to the polls. That's my concern. And I totally hear you. I hear you 100%.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of back and forth on it.
As far as turnout goes, I don't know that it's going to help us. I don't know that it's going to hurt us. During the week, you have the issue of the people that can't get back in time on the train. You have similar issues. I guess I was kind of hoping that I'd pick up some people that were there with their kids for sports. Maybe they'll run over while the kids are playing and they'll run over and vote. We can always hope. I think it's going to be a give or take, and hopefully it's a wash, for turnout. And unfortunately, our town elections are fairly low turnout. Anyhow, I don't know. Maybe if it's Saturday and everybody's out with the kids, they can come in and vote. And I do understand that people do work Saturdays. Hopefully it's not as long of a day for them as they put in during the week. I don't know that there's a good answer for that.
Jonathan?
Yeah, it's a comment more so than a question. I don't necessarily buy into it's safer to do on a Saturday. I actually would think the opposite. While yes, the kids don't get to go outside or use the gym, they are indoors safe from the guys driving over the trees.
Except when they come out to get on the bus.
Well, I'm saying at sports, there's no such structure around it. There's no one governing when they do and don't go into the parking lot. While sure, there's lots of eyes around it, that's not going to stop a kid from running out into traffic, kind of a thing. I think by the sports, the parking lot is busy enough on a full sports day when there's soccer and baseball and all those kinds of things, that introducing voting is just going to double the traffic, and I think will increase the risk of incidents. Even when kids are coming out for the bus, there's the police there. There's the...
Oh, no, there's not the police. The
there's
police are in the parking lot trying to...
Well, no, but my point being, the police are at least keeping an eye on, the people coming in and out of voting.
Yep.
The teachers are chaperoning them onto the bus. There's a little more control. At sports, there's no such control in place. I think that it would actually be more risk
Okay.
to the kids rather than less. At least it's in a little more of a controlled fashion when they're in school.
All right.
Does Chief Stone have a preference, or just?
Chief Stone prefers Saturdays. We've
Got it.
discussed this at length.
Thank you.
I think you got to remember, there's still, on Tuesdays, there's still sports going on in the afternoon and in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not like that's still not a problem today. So all we're really doing is eliminating school traffic. We still have the sports traffic, whether it's a Tuesday or a Saturday. Granted, it's all day Saturday rather than just afternoon and evening, but it's still there.
Anything else? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, can I ask one more question?
Yes. Sure.
Sorry.
Sure.
That's okay.
If we do it on Saturday, is there any way to do it at HOD rather than at Freeman?
No. It is a major ordeal to change a polling site. It has to be changed with the state of Massachusetts, and you can't bounce back and forth between sites. And every single voter in the town needs to be notified of the change. We have to get approved by the state, so it's not like it's fairly
can't-
close to a year process.
Oh, okay, but could that be initiated now, so in
To
a ye-
move
so in a
all the
year-
election back there?
Or certainly the town election that's going to be held on a Saturday?
So I have we have a Saturday in May, and then I have a September primary, then I have a November general, so
She's saying it would go
you
back.
can't do that. You can't go back and forth.
You can't, it all needs
No.
to be the same place.
Yes. Like I said, it can be changed, but it's a major ordeal to change it.
Because we've changed it.
Because we did change it, yeah.
So it's
And it
not
takes
feasible
some-
to change it just for the
No.
town elections?
No, and the HOD, I mean, we've discussed, the chief and I have discussed, even going back to the HOD, the HOD is even worse of a parking issue because there's so little parking in the back. There's no room for any cars over at the HOD. I mean, that's okay if, you have 800 people turn out for a primary, but it's not okay when you have, 4,000 people turn out for, a presidential. We really have no perfect site in this town for an election. We really don't. We have the schools other towns use. I mean, some towns use churches. We've looked at that. There's an accessibility issue because St. Jude's is the only big one big enough, but you can't. They don't have an elevator for handicap, and I have to meet.
Stairs.
I have to meet certain criteria. We have looked at every single site to try to just get it out of the schools, which would be everybody's preference.
Yeah.
But it's just not feasible. So just trying to, and again, like I said, the state elections are going to be on Tuesdays. There's nothing I can do about those. I'm just looking to just change. The town election, just take, one factor out. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, Rich, sorry for the little interruption. Not that Carol's an interruption, of course, but. And so we are on Article 17, which is another zoning bylaw article.
You remember at the December town meeting, town voted to ban recreational marijuana as a general bylaw. There was, if I recall correctly, there wasn't enough time to get this advertised and have them on the same warrant. Otherwise, they would have been there together as a zoning bylaw to ban recreational establishments. And it's been advisable through town councils that when you go about banning it, to have it both, to have it as a general bylaw and as a zoning bylaw. There's not much more than that.
Mr. Hathaway?
I was hoping it would go to 18 now.
Oh, okay. All right. Any questions, comments? No? We need to combine a place where you could go vote and get some marijuana and get a massage, right? And
Right.
And after you do that, you're going to be able to buy a car out of
Yeah.
the vending machine.
Right,
if you wait
perfect.
to go over number 18.
So,
Awesome.
yeah, how about that?
You're a
It is
thinker.
9 o'clock, isn't it?
I'm just trying to move
Yeah,
things along
yeah.
here. Get everything
He's a
tied up in
thinker.
one warrant. So,
All right, so the
Article
last,
18, I think, then.
what's that?
I think we're on to Article 18.
Article 18, yes. So as Jack just mentioned, alluded to, there is a company called Carvana. Maybe some of you know them or not.
Best name.
I didn't know about them until more recently, but essentially they sell automobiles as if they were an vending machine. And you go online, you put the specifications in that you want, and they get delivered to your home. So throughout the country, if you want to, just for the fun of it, Google and look at Carvana and how they operate. I do have a photo.
I sent one from
Yep. Jacksonville, Florida.
Charlotte, they have one.
Yep. So essentially what they want to do is they want to have a presence in New England region, and they've found a piece of property on Route 1A, which they would like to operate, which is where Mitch's is located. And under Massachusetts law, to be able to sell cars in this fashion, you need to have a Class 2 license. In order to do that, though, we need to make a slight change to the zoning bylaw definition for limited use motor vehicle sales. So essentially what would happen if this bylaw would be approved, they would be making some improvements to the building office-wise. Essentially would act as a hub for the the distribution of cars that are being sold. So they would come throughout wherever the cars come from. They would come here to the town, then be distributed out to whoever bought them. So essentially, when they're in town, they're already on the route. They're already sold. It's just a matter of bringing them in, processing, prep them, and ship them out. They're not they're not proposing to put a car vending machine in town. We have discussed that with them, so just as you'll be aware. But they do need to make some improvements to the property. So if this bylaw change were to go forward, they would have to go before the planning boards to make some changes to the property as far as parking goes and so forth. The vehicles that would be on site, they have to be non-visible from public view, so they would be behind the fence. So you wouldn't be seeing cars all lined up in the parking lot out front. They have roughly 5 to 8 employees that probably be working there, processing, and then, like I said, the cars would come in and out. So this definition is just a tweak of what we already have in the books in order to allow them to hopefully it's approved, operate in town.
Question, this current language has store and maintain. Presumably, there's a business, is there any business that takes advantage of that? And will that business be adversely affected or eliminated by this?
So that's the one that's there now, right?
Yeah, the business that's there now is allowed under a special permit from the zoning board, so they weren't, my understanding is this definition that we're changing was put in at some point 10, 20 years ago with the intention of allowing kind of internet sales, and they wouldn't even have the vehicles on site at all. So I don't think we're making any changes to anybody that's operating under this definition now.
So this store maintain language was really has never been taken advantage of, and, okay.
Correct.
And we are clear that we don't want it to happen? We don't
Yeah, I
want to
think,
include a business of that nature?
I think we're clear on the last part, which says that we don't want a large, we don't want to, we're not trying to create Route 1, the auto mile here, and we don't want a lot of displaying of used vehicles. I think that's the important thing. Our attorneys and Carvana's attorneys got together, and they felt that the sale and preparation allowed them to do the business that they wanted to do, which was kind of to prep the cars. But they're not in the used car maintenance business. They're getting ready, cars just ready for sale.
Harley?
We talk about a lot of cars in terms of the plan, and related to that, is there any limitation in our zoning bylaws or other laws that would restrict the size of this?
I think the restriction would be under the Class 2 license, which would be issued by the selectmen.
Okay.
And we have a number of Class 2 licenses around town. Some are limited to 5, others are, I don't know, Roach's is probably the biggest. They have a lot of used cars. I don't know what their limit is, but the selectmen would have the flexibility to determine the amount of size based on each lot that may come forward and try to utilize this definition.
And what's the sense of the size of Carvana's establishment?
I don't know, Rich, you remember?
You mean how many cars?
How many cars? Right, that's how many, yeah, exactly.
I thought it was maybe 30, in the 30 range, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I was going to say 30 to 40 with the
Yeah.
employee cars.
Yeah.
But again, they'd all be, the employee cars might be parked on the street in a typical type parking lot. And then the cars that have for the business are behind the fence.
Wasn't as large as you may think, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a thought, so that's very helpful.
So Arlie, what they usually do, that company, because I was on their website a couple weeks ago, is that they'll have like flatbed trucks that, guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but so when someone buys a car online, they're like a flatbed truck, will then deliver the car to whoever purchased it. So are they going to deliver cars that get sold to actual purchasers there also?
Yeah.
They would, okay.
Yeah.
I'm amazed. People are buying cars sight unseen, but I guess
Old school.
I'm old, yeah.
All right, anything else on Carvana and Article 18? No? Okay. We'll go on to Article 19, submitted by the town administrator. Just happened to be here.
Prepare for that.
No? I'm just, figured you were there, why not just go for it? So,
It's, this is this can expand or be as limited as committee itself can define, but a number of, communities typically go through a process similar to, I meant to address Stephanie, talking about overall zoning, uses, et cetera. That's a process we would go through really with the master plan and kind of looking at uses in different districts. This is at the government, how the government functions level. We did this back in early 2000, just before I got here in 2003. They had a charter committee that looked at the way we operated. And that's, at that point, we created, the committee got together, looked at a bunch of different options, and ultimately decided to create the finance department. So that's what I'm proposing, is that the town meeting authorized the selectmen to put together a charter committee that looks at how we run government, whether or not the advisory board should be appointed by the selectman or the moderator, whether or not there should be a town manager, town administrator, whether or not the recreation committee should be elected or appointed. They can, whether the town, we're already handling it, but whether or not the town clerk should be elected or appointed. So it's really, Rentham just went through this process. The committee generally goes for a year to two. They put together a charter. They have a whole slew of public information sessions, and and go back and forth, and they have a living document that gets updated and generated, and then ultimately you go to town meeting with a home rule petition saying that we want to create this charter. This is how we think town government should run. Town meeting gets to either approve or deny that. If they approve it, then it would go to the legislature, and it'd have to go through the state legislator to adopt a charter. And in that would be how you would modify the charter in the future. And that would be up for the town to decide how you would want to make changes to that charter. So it's just really it's a process of saying, do we want to continue to operate the way we operate for the next 10 to 20 years?
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Do I understand you correctly that we have a charter now and we're going to change it, or
We had a charter committee. We didn't actually create a charter. They decided not to, but they made some amendments to the bylaws, and that's when we created the finance department, created the finance director position, and probably the one before that, we created the town administrator position, because before that we had an executive secretary.
Is there any specific notion of changes that need to be made that are driving this, or is it just, hey, other towns are doing it, maybe it's a good idea for us to do it, kind of thing?
Well, nothing dramatic. The one that, I think if we weren't doing the town clerk already, I think that would be one that we would look at. The other one that comes up periodically is just the Recreation Commission. Do they really need it to be an elected board? I think we have a hard enough time trying to find people who want to volunteer, let alone run a campaign in order to be able to volunteer. So why not just have, in that case, why not just have a board that can be appointed by, you can decide. You could have half decided, approved by the selectmen, half approved by the moderator, whatever the town ultimately decides. But that's one case. Other towns have done things like make planning board members, part of the board appointed, part of the board elected. So in that case, you're getting rid of a popularity contest in that type of a situation. For you might have two members that are identified to have specific skills, and you can appoint them rather than elect them. I'm not sure that sure there's pros and cons on that, but that's one thing that certain towns have done.
We could tackle all of those things as individual issues if we wanted to, right? I mean, there's nothing to stop us from saying, let's look at the rec department and change town bylaws accordingly.
Yeah, you could have town meeting, well, I don't know about everything. I mean, I think certainly whether or not the Recreation Commission, I assume we could go through the same process we're doing with the clerk. You know, you go through a town meeting vote, and then a year later, you go through a town election. I think so. I don't know if there are other things that require home rule legislation, and you wouldn't be able to just fix at the local level.
Didn't we just consider the town clerk's position? I know you and I had a conversation about it, but I can't remember if, did we bring it before town meeting?
We did a town meeting, and so town meeting approved it, and now it has to go, now it'll be on the spring's ballot.
Okay,
So it'll be,
I couldn't remember.
so there's a sample ballot out in the hallway, and that's question one, I believe, right?
It's the only question on that one.
So that's one that we probably wouldn't have to include in the charter.
Correct. Although, we'd probably put it in, but it would hopefully follow the wishes of whatever this election result is, I would imagine.
Just to say, I think the advantage of creating a town government study committee is that citizens of the town now would have a board that they could address concerns, questions to, whereas opposed now on a piecemeal basis, what are you gonna talk, are you gonna talk to Jack about it? Well, you have to go before the Board of Selectmen. At least, I think this way at least starts a dialogue with people in town. What do they want out of their town government? No, I'm done.
Too late.
One of the other, and again, I'm not pushing yes or no, but, well, I think it's actually I forgot, it's a petition, but the recall provision, that's another thing that you could put into a charter, whether or not you want to have a recall provision. I've had, that's an occasional question that I get from people, like, how can we get rid of somebody? Right now, you can vote them out of office.
I guess I'm hearing, somebody said something about town government study committee, and then there's the charter commission, and that's not, it seems to me like they're kind of the same thing, and what's the charter do, and how does it, you know?
Sorry, so I should back, I mean, I think the directive of the objective of the town government study committee is to review the way we operate. And they, you know, I would suggest that they go meet with probably the Rentham committee, because I think they probably went through a very similar process. Jerry McGovern chaired that committee. He's now a selectman. They went through a 2-year process, and I'm sure just kind of gleaning through their materials and looking at what they reviewed, you know, would be a good start. But the ultimate goal of the town government study committee is, well, I guess at the end, if they say, well, we don't want to have any changes, then they don't have to do anything. But ultimately, if they want to make, I would hope that they want to create a charter that, even if it just documents the way we operate today, it's all documented better. You know, Jay and I have had conversations over the years, one as simple as, you know, does the senior center executive director have the authority to sign off on bills, or do they need to have a quorum of the Council on Aging sign the bills? We don't, it's not in our bylaws, it's not defined anywhere, so that would be something that we would ultimately like to have in the charter, that says, you know, that for bills where somebody reports to a board, the board has to sign off, or the board can delegate to a board, you know, so that the process is defined. Of course, you'd want to have a process in the charter to make changes to the charter, so that we figure out that something isn't working right, we can fix it. You know, Rentham's going through they're changing chiefs now. Police chief just retired, the fire chief is retiring. You know, and they're going to their charter to see who, you know, and they had an interim town administrator, so it was you want to have definition about who who can do that, and fortunately they had a good charter, I think, that the interim town administrator couldn't make changes, couldn't make appointments. So then it would default to the selectmen, but if there was a town manager, I should say, in place, then the town manager had the authority to make those appointments. I'm fortunate that I have a very good relationship with the selectmen. They delegate a lot of authority to me on a day-to-day basis. I'd like to have that codified, ultimately, and not have to go back through 20 years of minutes to figure out where that delegation happened. I'd rather have it just laid out in the charter. Again, not that I have a problem with the way we're operating today, but it's for their benefit and my benefit to have it simplified.
Yes.
Just one quick comment. There is a difference between a charter committee and a town bylaw study committee. A charter committee is actually, according to Mass law, has very strict guidelines and deadlines to present a charter to the town. I believe it's 18 months. By calling it a town bylaw or a town government study committee, it allows a little bit more flexibility, I think.
Okay. Anything else? No? All right. Would you be able to touch on Article 24, please? Do you mind?
Which one, 20?
20?
Sure. I should have cornered Rich while he was here.
Yeah.
So those are just two, the creation of, the request to create two new revolving funds. And what it would do is, rather than incorporating those estimates for fees into the application fees, it would allow them to have a revolving fund that would allow them to kind of assess the fees and advertise as necessary. And if there were any changes to that advertising cost, that they would be able to recoup that from the applicant. So it's just a one-for-one relationship. We charge the applicants and then pay for their advertising costs. One's for, obviously, one's for the zoning board, one's for the planning board. Did I miss anything, Todd? Thank you.
Any questions or discussion on that?
Does the planning board really need 5 revolvers?
Yes.
Can't we trade? If you really want this one, you're going to have to give up the other one. Like, what about that unaccepted subdivision 2114? We surely don't need that one.
I'll consult with my expert and get back to you on that.
Anything else? Article 21 looks like it would be next. More of Arlie's favorites.
That is just the reauthorization of the existing.
Of the existing, yep.
And there are no changes.
No.
Those have to be reauthorized every year then?
They do.
Even without any changes? Right. Let's see.
Maybe a charter commission could figure out a way to eliminate the revolving funds, huh?
They might be able to.
That's 22. Yep. I think we already voted on those, didn't we?
Oh, did you? That wasn't here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So now that you've revoted, the chairman's here.
Did you get any scalps?
Very quiet. It's a little bit of a blow.
Yes, yeah. 28, 29, 30, we can't do those till later. Yeah. All right, so it's getting a little bit later, so we could vote on some of the things that we were presented this evening, or we could do that next week. Next week, we would also do the recall petition, which is also a citizen's petition, same citizen as the town hall honors. And then we have Chief Bushnell coming in next week from the fire, and one other thing, right?
Bob McGee,
Bob McGee for DPW.
DPW, and then Jack and Todd. Budget.
I would
Yeah, so-
suggest we vote on what we can now.
That's what I
because
would think,
next
too.
week sounds like it's going to be a long
Pretty
night
busy.
in and of itself.
And the petitioner may come next, I could get an email tomorrow that says.
It's the same individual?
Yes, yes. So we'll certainly include him in that group as well.
Okay. All right, so 11 we indefinitely postponed, which is different when you don't have the word indefinitely in front of it. And so 12 we're going to hold. Article 13 we do not need to vote on. Article 14 is moving the town election from Tuesday to Saturday.
I move to approve Article 14.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just my comment, I know a lot of us have different versions in our heads, and I have a hard time visualizing it, but just speaking for myself, the clerk knows more about the elections than anybody I know, and I really trust the public safety officers who recommended Saturday, so I'm supporting Saturday.
I agree. I think it's an interesting experiment. I'm concerned about the effect on the election because a lot of people vote to and from work. On the other hand, they're home all day now and they have plenty of opportunity to vote, so.
Or not.
Or not, exactly right. So I think we try it, we see if it works, and we always have the option to revisit it if we determine that it hasn't accomplished its goals.
All right, I don't see anybody else, so all in favor of approval of Article 14, which would move the town election from Tuesday to Saturday, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
No.
Who knows?
All right, so that is approved. Article 15 was the one that we had a lengthy discussion on with some concerns about the language, and which I don't want to go over again, but we could vote on this, or which is fine with me, but if there's a preference to wait to see if we can get something clarified on that,
I'd like
then-
to see some clarification on the language.
I'd be happy to wait.
Okay,
until next time.
all right, so why don't we table that till next week then?
And as soon as I get that, I'll get it out to email to everybody prior to the meeting.
Or if there's not going to be a change, maybe a little explanation of like where the source of that came from. Maybe there's people that are experts that have already drafted and reviewed that, and then we should yield to that. Article 16 would be next, and that is to see if we will vote to amend Section B of the zoning bylaws by adding that new language after earth removal, reference the exercise and aerobic studio.
Move to approve?
Seconded.
Any discussion?
I wish they could just interpret this by what they have already, but
Mhm.
since they want to specify it, I'm okay with that.
Okay. All in favor of Article 16?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, so Article 16 passes.
Going for a massage once it's all done.
So, Might need
Ugh,
might need
rub
one
it
after
in,
this
rub it
meeting.
That was bad.
And,
That's okay.
moving-
It was a good try.
It's late.
Article 17 is, that is a zoning bylaw, which basically would mirror what the town meeting voted on last year relative to marijuana. So we would be, if we vote yes on this, then we would be putting the zoning bylaw in place that would ban these type of sales and activities.
So we're
Move to
doubling
approve Article
down.
17?
We are doubling down, yes.
I move to approve Article 17.
Any other discussion? Nope. All in favor?
I need a second.
Oh, I saw someone second. No?
What? No,
Well, I'm just curious, if this goes down, then what do we do?
Right. So I'll second it.
Okay.
Any other discussion on Article 17? Nope. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Harley's opposed. And Article 18 is relative to the parcel on Route 1A, where like Mitch's repair is,
The
relative,
vending machine, yeah.
yes, right,
Yeah.
but we don't get the cool vending machine, actually.
It's good.
For the, making a couple of changes to that bylaw relative to the limited motor vehicle sales. Okay, wow.
Move to approve?
Second.
Any other discussion, or? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so Article 18 is also approved. Oops. Article 19, we just heard from Mr. Hathaway relative to the Town Government Study Committee. So a yes vote on this would, our recommendation would be that we should create a Town Government Study Committee as appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
Move to approve?
Seconded.
Any other discussion?
Well, I'm curious, is what they produce still have to come before the town for approval? Like if they come up with a charter, it's got to be voted on, I assume?
Well, I would guess so, because they're not doing a charter committee. They're doing a town
government
government
study.
Correct,
study
right. So
committee,
if-
which
Right.
Anthony explained to us.
But if they do a study committee, he was hoping that they would in fact recommend a charter.
And they might, but then I
They
would
might
guess
not.
there would be, right, they might not. They haven't the last two times.
But if
so-
they do,
Yeah.
then whatever that product is would still have to come to be approved?
I don't think that's binding. I would think,
Yeah, I think it's
we'd
more
have
of like
to-
a report, I
Yeah.
think, and then
Oh, okay, then people can do things
recommendations
different.
could be
Got it.
Right.
made into
And
other.
there's going to be all kinds of public, he said there'd be
Comment.
public
Comments.
comment periods,
Okay.
et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think some of the simple things he rattled off there, like people getting elected for offices that nobody cares who gets elected to and so
Yeah.
forth, justifies going through the exercise. I have reservations about the whole town charter thing, but
Yeah, yeah. But to study what we're
To
currently
just-
doing and make
to-
some
and
recommendations
make-
on how
yeah.
that could be different, I mean, it doesn't seem that scary to me.
Yeah.
yep.
Especially because it has been a while since they did the charter thing, right? 2003, I think you said. So,
Yeah, makes sense.
all right. We have a motion.
Move to approve.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any negatives?
Revolving fund.
Harley wants to make the motion on this one.
Feel it is butt.
Well, I think the town administrator said that he was going to examine to see whether or not we really needed all these. But I don't know if he was just trying to.
Is that what he said?
To keep me quiet, but 5 revolving funds for the planning board. What the heck? Why is that such a?
Weren't some of these the revolving funds and like the recommendations part of that? I forget the name of it, but it was like a new, because Todd talked to us about it last year. It's like all these recommendations in terms of like finance and how to set up some of the different accounts in the funds. They had some cool initials, which of course now I don't remember. But I thought there was some like talk about some recommendations on revolving funds from that as well.
I don't.
That doesn't sound familiar.
They're just pulling it out of thin air. That's right.
No, there was some other accounts or things that Todd presented on last year about that. But anyway, so, all right, so we have a motion on Article 20.
Do we want to wait to see if they come back with any streamlining?
He said he would.
All right,
Be happy to
that's
just
fine,
hold on this till
because
next week.
if they do, it should be pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
I just don't want to have us be here till 11 next week, so.
Can we send that email to Jeff, just reminding him, hey,
Yep.
you know, if you can get back to us,
Yep.
otherwise we'll sick early.
All right, so we'll hold that for next week.
I'm with you, it seems pretty complicated. Simple's better.
Yeah, let's hold it.
But 21, we can vote on because these are the standard ones, or did you want to sort of bundle those up and try to get some more information on both?
We do want a horse trade, don't we? Get rid of some of the 21 articles to make room for the 20s?
Yeah, I think if we're going to delay.
20, we delay 21 also. Does anybody have a problem with that? Yep. All right, so we'll hold 20, and we'll hold 21. I never knew there were such strong feelings about revolving funds.
Well, Arlie and I have had a vendetta against them
It's a recurring theme.
at least 10 years, if not longer.
My entire 8, so, yeah, maybe more, Pat.
All right, I think you did what we could do.
All right, good.
So, for next week, can everyone be here?
I think so.
Yeah.
Did we vote on the, this one, we were gonna hold off till we heard from the trip. How many days town's open?
All right,
Move to adjourn?
meeting adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
See you all next week.